every one of us has to share our stories because we will inspire somebody by sharing our experiences and our stories.
I knew he'd dance.
I'm definitely.
Hey, welcome back to Membership Unplugged. This is our weekly member cast where we talk about all things membership in Rotary. And today I'm Todd Shepard. I'm here with my co-host Patrick Longano, and we have a very special guest with us today. This is the Rotary International Director from Zones 2832. Welcome, Chris Etienne.
ATN.
Etienne. I have
Thank
to
you, Todd.
I have to share as far as pronunciations are concerned. I got a message from Patrick this morning on my phone. Now, Patrick likes to talk into his phone. And it took me a while to figure out what he was saying. We were trying to coordinate a time to cut this video. And he says, here's what he says. What he says into his phone and how it transferred onto my text. It says, "Hey, man, I've got Chrissy Dan from 12 to 1, but that one from 1:30 just can't do Eastern 3-5, 1:35, my 3 apologies." So
Hey,
anyway,
listen,
at least I didn't pronounce it Chrissy Dan.
That's okay.
it doesn't understand Italian. That's the problem.
Or
That's the
French.
problem.
Or
French.
French.
There you go. Good gracious.
Chris, talk to us. You're a director for Rotary in zones 28 and 32. Where is that? Now I know you're based in Michigan as your home club, and that you told me how to say it. It's Petoskey. Did I say it right?
Petoskey, Michigan, yes.
Petoskey,
And
with a
it's
little
kind
bit
of
of a
it's kind
nasal.
of famous because there's a Petoskey stone, right? It kind of looks like a fossil, and it's the official stone for the state of Michigan.
Really?
So, yes,
I learned about that. It kind of looks like
like a
almost
fossil.
Opalaska. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really neat. They thought it was a stone before. We learned all about this, by the way. It's kind of weird in District 6360's thing. It was they were going over the state bird. Did you guys know that you have a state soil?
No,
You have a state soil.
I did
But
not
we
know
learned
that.
about the Petoskey stone.
Yep.
Very
Yep.
cool.
The
And our town
Petoskey
was named
Stone.
after Chief Petoskey, who was from the indigenous tribe of the Little Traverse Bay Band of Odawa Indians. And we have a statue of him in town. So, yes, Todd, I serve on the board representing all of our members, Rotary and Rotaract members in zones 28 and 32. Zone 28 includes most of the state of Michigan, most of the entire country of Canada,
Okay.
Alaska, and the 2 French islands of St. Pierre and Miquelon, which are off the eastern coast of Canada.
That's huge.
It's
It
huge.
is geographically pretty vast. And then our partner zone, Zone 32, includes the New England states down to part of Pennsylvania, the state of New Jersey, and Bermuda.
Yeah,
Wow.
so you get to go to Alaska,
And
Nova
Bermuda,
Scotia, Bermuda,
Michigan,
Michigan. I mean, and
and the
everywhere.
northern, as you know, Todd, part of the northern state of Washington is
Yeah.
part of Zone 28 as well.
Whereabouts that?
Well, I remember we talked about Moses
Oh,
Lake, which is
so
in District
okay.
5060, and that district is part of Zone 28.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, yeah, Chris, you were mentioning that you came to Moses Lake, which is about a little over an hour from my place here, and attended a club meeting there, a celebration, right?
Yeah, the Rotary Club of Moses Lake celebrated their 75th anniversary this year.
Wow.
And I was honored to be there for a very special event. Very engaged Rotary Club. Very impressed with them.
Oh, that's
They're
great.
doing a lot of right
75
things.
years.
They have a very young female president, and she was very nervous stepping into that role, and she just had incredible support from her members.
Hey, you also too, so 5060 is in 28. That's a
Yep.
great district. I love the District 5060. You're in 5080 though, Todd, right?
Right. We border right next to them,
I love that.
5080. And now, Chris, you flew into Spokane. That's in my district
I did.
when
And
you got there. And
5080's
then,
in zone 27, right?
yep, we're
Yeah.
27.
Yeah.
I love that. And then Chris, um you were just at District 5010's.
The state of Alaska.
That's a
Beautiful state.
Yeah, that's unusual too, because I talked with Peggy Pollen, and everybody here knows
Yep.
Peggy, and she was the DG in 2012, I believe. I think she was classmates with Chris Jones, and what I heard was the year before they not only had the state of Alaska, but they had the Yukon as well and Siberia in Russia.
Yes.
Siberia.
So I was district governor in 2007, 2008.
Uh-huh.
And my classmate from 5010, the state of Alaska, was, oh my gosh, I was just asking about him. Maynard, can't remember his last name. He was not at the district conference, but the year we were governors, he had two-thirds of Russia in the district. And I remember when we
Wow.
were talking at our district governor-elect learning seminar that he said he was going to be gone for 3 months to do his club visits in Russia.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Talk about commitment on that. That's crazy. And
Yeah.
I heard Marty saying this week that that's a real big challenge, just the state of Alaska alone, because they
Oh,
have to
yeah.
fly basically everywhere.
Right.
They have to. He said that a certain percentage of the clubs were off the road, and
Right.
you had to fly down to Juneau, you had to fly down or up to Barrow, and and all of those other places. It's very interesting. You've got a really, really, really diverse area in 28 and in 32 for that matter.
And a beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, the life of a director. So when you get out and one of the roles as director, well, I'll circle it back, this little segue back to membership, if you
Yep.
don't mind,
Absolutely.
is you do talk about membership. And I would imagine that you probably get your share of questions or guidance. It's like, hey, you're the director. What can we do to get our clubs moving and get new members and keep the attrition down in that. So what's some of your ideas, or what are some of the things that you think about when we start talking about membership?
Well, I tell people to call the North American Club Creation Team.
That's the right answer.
Thanks, Chris.
We've actually been, the whole board has been, North American directors have just been so excited about this North American Club Creation Team and all the new opportunities, right, that you're providing our clubs and our districts to do Rotary differently. And I'm also a big fan of our Rotary Action Plan.
Oh
When
yeah.
when Stephanie Yurchik was president of Rotary, she invited me to help gather together some people all over the world to really be champions for our Rotary Action Plan. So we've been, really, really trying to educate, inform, and promote the action plan to our clubs. And really, the four priorities of our action plan are all intertwined with everything membership. Increasing our impact, expanding our reach, enhancing participant engagement, increasing our ability to adapt. And we have a toolkit. We have an action plan toolkit, which gives our clubs very specific activities on how to engage in the action plan. And it's really just educating them on how to expand your reach, right? How to get into your community in different ways than you are now. How to enhance participant engagement. A lot of what you guys are doing, how do you re-engage your members? Maybe those have slowly kind of faded away. They're not engaged anymore. They might come to a club meeting now and then, but maybe they're not showing up at a service project or they're not showing up at your social activities. And, you know, sometimes an email doesn't do the job. You got to pick up the phone and call people and say, "Hey, we miss you." And you know how much that means to somebody if you say, "You know what? We miss you." And I'll run into someone, maybe I'm out in the community shopping or something. I'll say, "I haven't seen you at Rotary lately. Come back and join us." That personal touch goes so far, so far. with people. And I know everybody's busy, but I think every Rotary Club can find a group of people who are willing to dive in and take the extra effort to reach out to people who aren't engaged.
I like that
And
human connection. I think that's
oh,
real important.
it is important. I think back to, people say, "How did you get so involved in Rotary?" And I'll tell you, it's because somebody tapped me on the shoulder and invited me to come and do something. And it was that person that invited me to go to a district conference, which is where I drank the Rotary Kool-Aid.
Isn't
Because
that cool? Isn't that cool that that's what I see that all the time? And in the past several conferences that I've been to, they made it a concerted effort to call out the first time attendees. Like up in
yep,
Alaska, the 50
yep,
10, they had
yep,
they had what, 60 something first time attendees? Because
yep.
I think that's when really people get out of their club and go, oh, there's a whole lot more bigger. And then you can even take a step further, go to an international convention. And that is just amazing too. Todd, have you been to an international convention?
Well, you and I were together at in
Oh, in
Calgary
Calgary,
this
that's
year.
right.
Yes,
Oh my gosh. Oh,
Calgary
it was
someone
was
had to
amazing.
keep all the notes and keep things in line when you were up there launching the North America Club Creation
oh,
Team. So
yeah,
uh,
no,
that's
that
how
was such.
easy you forget the.
No, Calgary was fun, man.
It was.
I had a really, really good time in Calgary. I thought it was fantastic. I'm looking forward to, I know that you're going to Taipei, Chris, and then we've got Barcelona the next year, and then I think
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis.
Yes.
Minneapolis is after that too, and that's a beautiful city. So I can't wait
2028's
there.
Minneapolis. That'll be a great convention.
What do you
Yeah,
think
so
about
it
the?
was that one person that said, "Hey, we're going to the district conference. Why don't you come?"
Who was
And it
it? Who
was
wasn't?
what?
Do you remember the person's name?
I do remember the person's name. His name is Andy Hayes, and he was a member of my club. He later joined the Petoskey Sunrise Club. He has recently relocated to the Grand Rapids area.
Ooh,
And immediately, I was so proud of him because he immediately connected with the Rotary Club of Allendale. He reached out because he'd been a member of Rotary for a long time, different clubs, but stayed engaged with the organization. Allendale is also a club in my home district, and reached out and joined that club and has gotten active with them. He's posting stuff on social media all
oh
the
wow.
time with the projects he's doing. But yeah, he was the one that said, "Hey, why don't you we're going up to the district conference." It was in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario
Ooh,
in 1993. And we went. My husband at the time, we were just dating at that time. And he came with me, and it truly was the first experience I had outside of my own Rotary Club. And once you learn about Rotary beyond the club level, there's just something that, like, you just get hooked. You just get so hooked. The people you meet, the things you learn about, because that was when my club has always been very engaged with the Rotary Foundation, both members being very active with donating as well as applying for grants. But that was the time that I really understood what the money did, what the programs of the Rotary Foundation supported. Meeting a global scholar, meeting at that time it was a group study exchange team. And it changed my whole perception of what the organization is all about. Changed my life in so many ways.
Wow,
Having
that's you
And it
know
was because somebody, like I said, it was because somebody had at the club had, "Hey, we're at the district conference of so and so," but there wasn't all this excitement. There wasn't a built up of excitement of people that were going to it. So I probably wouldn't have gone without somebody, personally inviting me to come along and see what
oh
it was
wow.
all about.
good
Well,
shout out to Andy.
yeah.
You bring up a good point because we talk about it in meetings. Oh, hey, there's district conference coming up on next Friday, Saturday, and we hear that as a shout out. We don't always, people don't always take that next step and go in. And in this case, he took you by the arm and said, "You should go. I think this would be good for you." And look at the impact that has been created by Andy's momentarily introduction to that.
Yep,
He may not
absolutely.
have seen what he was doing, to create this impact where you've gone on for, I mean, you talk about all these areas that you go in, everything you've done as director and that's led you up here, district governor, president, right? I read a little bit. I mean, you're involved in some water projects in Haiti and polio eradication in India and Nicaragua, right? I mean, you've been in or Nigeria, I guess, and you've been involved in a lot of that. These are the impacts that you're having on how many people in the world just because Andy said, you know what? Why don't you just do this one thing and see if you like it?
It's
Imagine
true.
if we did that to the next five people we run into and just say, hey, why don't you give this a try? You could even say, why don't you come join us at a volunteer event in Rotary?
Yep.
Maybe someone, you never know when that next person, that's all we all got here, right? I'll give
Yep.
a shout out to Daryl Francis for inviting me.
Actually, that is like one of the coolest observations, that ripple in time. If Andy didn't say something, then that might not have happened, that might
Yeah.
not have happened, that might not have happened. That's actually
Butterfly
the
effect, right?
butterfly effect. That's actually really, really kind of cool there.
Yep.
But the sad part about it is the reason why people don't call back. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. We know we're supposed to be calling the people that don't show up for our meetings in in a while. And
Sure.
and and some people will say, "Hey, you don't have the program for it, or you don't have that." We have the process for it, but people are afraid to make that call. A lot of people are afraid to make that call because they don't want to be the ones to hear, "Oh, I meant to call you and let you know that we weren't coming back." They don't. It's that fear of rejection. That's the reason why, good rule of thumb. And Todd will laugh at this, but because it's the truth is. 20% of your people are going to recruit 80% of your people to Rotary. I mean, that's just what it is. And
Right.
Chris, you're in sales too. That's just how it goes. And it's because of that fear of rejection. So, the only thing that I can point to is that um think about what Chris and Todd just said. Anybody's listening out there, you don't have to be fearful of somebody saying that to you. The benefit that will come out of you inviting somebody or the benefit of you calling somebody will far outweigh any kind of the one chance that somebody says that they don't want to be in Rotary anymore. So just talk to people is the most important thing in my opinion, just like Andy talked with you. And and you know Buddy talked to me. I just think it's important to do so.
Chris, you brought up the action plan.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite parts of the action plan is the building blocks, the impact building blocks, because I think that ties in not just to impact, it also ties into membership. And let me explain what I mean is the building blocks are a tool that you use within the action plan to help decide whether a project or fundraiser or whatever it is you've been doing, if it's something you're doing every year, your club's doing every year because you've been doing it every year, and maybe it's not relevant anymore. So you use these tools. It's all part of it to determine whether this is relevant and if it's impactful. If the impact outweighs the efforts that we have to put in,
Yep.
that it then becomes something that not just the current members but potential members look at and say, I want to be part of that.
Yep.
Versus, I got to wash my hair that weekend, right? If they don't see the value. What do you think about that? Do you?
Oh, I agree 100%. And when I talk about the action plan, I often and I use that exact scenario, Todd. I say, is your club doing this project every year just because you've done it every year? And how do you know that there isn't something else out there that your community needs? So I talk to people about, why not do a community assessment? And if you're going to do a community assessment, reach out to other organizations in your community and do it together to find out what is the true need in your community. Because if you partner with other organizations in your community, you're also going to be expanding your reach and connecting with more people in the community that want to get excited about this new project you're going to take. And you're probably going to get new members because of it. So it's just such an opportunity to really find out, what is it that your community needs today versus this project you started 20 years ago that maybe isn't that relevant anymore, just as you mentioned.
Yeah, when the
Yep.
engagement goes down, so do the members. Your new members aren't into it. You've got your members that have been around forever that started it. That it was cool back then and it worked great. It maybe has just lost its luster or it's maybe ran its course. And then what I found is that you have that group in the middle, the ones that keep doing the work, rather than the people that have been around that maybe they can't do it anymore. And the people in the middle are doing the work, and then the newer people aren't doing it because they don't see the value. But it has to be done so that those poor group that are in the middle doing all the jobs and then they grumble about it. I don't know if that builds a good club culture. So
Yep.
Rotary Action Plan.
Yep.
Well, I've got a quick question, one or two quick questions, Chris, because from the time you were district governor, president of your club, and then district governor, and then on up to through director, you've seen a ton of things change. We used to do classifications and all of these things and take attendance and all of that. How important is flexibility to turning down or turning around the declining numbers in North America and beyond in Rotary? How important is flexibility? Where would you rank that on your scale?
Oh, 11. On a
Wow.
scale of 1 to 10, 11.
Wow.
Wow. I love it. I love it.
Flexibility.
Flexibility is key. And it's interesting because it was actually, the Council on Legislation, which is our legislative body that changes our rules, right?
Yep.
It was the 2016 Council on Legislation that was probably one of the boldest we've ever had.
Wow.
And that was the council that voted in favor of Rotary clubs not having to meet every week anymore.
Nice.
It gave clubs that flexibility to meet twice a month. And you could meet in any way that you wanted as long as you were getting together twice a month. You didn't have to have that weekly meeting in person, 52 weeks out of the year. So it's like that was the opportunity to say to clubs, you can meet once a month in person, and then you can do a virtual meeting for the second one, or the second
A
one can
service
be a
project.
service project, or the
Yeah.
second one can be our club calls it Thirsty Thursday, where we go to a local establishment and we share a glass of wine together. And if we can't do it on Thursday, then we call it Wine Down Wednesday.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Wind down.
There's a rhyme for every week, every day of the week.
There is. But to me, that was a real game changer because for a lot of people to make that weekly commitment is difficult, and it used to be when I first joined my Rotary Club, we used to meet for an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes every week.
Wow.
So by the time I left work, went to the meeting, got back to work, I was gone 2 hours every Wednesday.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, making that kind of a commitment is very difficult. So, what's interesting is there are still a lot of clubs, older clubs. My club's over 100 years old,
Wow.
that are very traditional. We've gotten flexible about some things,
Mhm.
but there are a lot of older clubs that are still pretty stringent about meeting every week, and some of those clubs don't even realize that the rules changed. Well, some of them don't even realize that they don't have to meet every week. But others do, and they've just chosen to keep meeting weekly. But that has created that opportunity, right? To start another club in your community that meets in a different way.
Yeah. Or companion that just, I always tell people to try to get around that. I tell people all the time, we don't want you to change anything that you're doing. If that's the way you serve Rotary, we applaud you. We're behind you 150%.
Yep.
In addition to that, because can you support us allowing people to serve just a little differently than you? And normally, when you tell them right up front, you don't expect them to, you want them, you cheering them on to continue the way that they want to do it, but just allow some people to serve a little differently. That really greases the skids. and it brings me to the follow-up question on that. We hear a lot of advice in Rotary. People talk, people have ideas, and that's great. We kind of foster it. In your opinion, what have you seen that some of those little nuggets that you see that works or in practice instead of just, you know, being good at presentation? You know what I mean? We get boots on the ground kind of thing. Some nuggets that you've done because you're excellent at membership. So we're learning here talking with you. So what do you think?
Well, I've tried to be a champion of membership for many, 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 many years. I was actually membership chair for my district years ago, and we had these T-shirts that our whole committee wore that said, "Get your ask in gear." Get your ask in gear.
I love it.
You have to go out and ask people to join your organization, to join Rotary. You have to ask them to come on a service project. We did highway cleanup last Saturday. Come and pick up some garbage with me. And it's just a fun way to get to meet people and do service and community. We lost Patrick.
No, 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 you didn't. Check
I
this
I
out.
love highway cleanup. What's that say? Back up.
Oh,
Back up. Too
Maniacs,
close.
something
You got
maniacs.
to move it
membership
over.
maniacs.
Move it to your left or your right.
Okay.
Membership
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 maniacs.
maniacs.
maniacs. That's what
Now,
it said. So when
Chris,
you said get your ask in gear, my district, when I was the membership chair, I'm like, and if you notice this, Todd, if you don't recognize that, that's the Hulk Hogan font. You know,
oh yeah.
to be sure, we're the membership maniacs. So I like your asking, get your asking gear.
Well,
We love
I
those.
I've been pushing Patrick for a while, and we'll get your take on this. We've got the North America Club Creation Team, the
Awesome team. Yep.
NACCT.
Oh
And I
no,
tell them, I say, we need T-shirts that said "Get naked with me," NACCT, or want to get naked.
We're
that's
so good at
funny.
acronyms in
He's
Rotary, but
we love our acronyms in Rotary, don't we?
We do. We do. We do.
but so,
Well,
sometimes it's the little things that matter.
yeah.
And a perfect example is if you have somebody at your Rotary Club meeting that greets everybody when they come in the door.
Yep.
It's all about somebody feeling welcomed, feeling that they belong. Everybody's time is so precious that they're not going to give up that hour to go to Rotary unless they feel welcome there. And that the club that experience is creating value in their life.
Hmm.
It's what's in it for me, right? People want to know,
Hmm.
what am I going to get out of this? And sometimes, it takes a lot of extra time, but I say to people, if you're not meeting your members' expectations, they're not going to stick around.
No.
And I know it takes time, but you need to find out what every single person expects to get out of that Rotary experience because everybody's looking for something different. And if we're not meeting their expectations, they're going to go elsewhere. Why are they going to give up their time and their money if they're not having a good experience?
It's exactly.
I was actually sitting across from somebody at my Rotary meeting last week who said she moved up to our area. She had been a member of a Rotary club in another part of the state, retired and moved up here. And myself and another member of my club saw her at one of our fundraisers and we just got to chatting and she said, "Oh, I'm in Rotary, blah, blah, but I'm retired. I'm moving up here." And we're like, "You have to come to our club. You have to come and join us." And I was just talking to Jean last week and she said, "Chris, it's you and Jane made a real difference because I don't know that I would have joined your club had you not reached out and invited me to come." She said, "Because I had visited your club years before when I was up here on vacation, and I didn't feel very welcome."
Wow.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Wow.
Wow.
I was devastated to think that somebody visited us and didn't feel that they belonged there.
Unbelievable.
I was just devastated at that. So it meant so much to me when Jean said, "You and Jane made a difference." And, it's been what'd she say, 10, 12, 13 years now since she's joined our club. And she said, and I'm so glad I did.
Well, Christy,
Another
you
great
said
impact story there. I
it,
think
and
that's terrific.
you said a couple of times during that, and more than a few during this call, that feel, feel, and
Yep.
you know as well as I do, and Todd does, that people buy on emotion. People will be engaged, more likely to join if they can feel what you want them, that your club is doing good in your community, your club is doing good in the world, that you can touch and tap into that feel. And I think that is a part that's missing. I think that's a reason why people like Todd and you and others do really well at recruiting. And I get trust me, in a couple of minutes, as soon as Todd posts this, that there'll be a bunch of comments. Don't say recruiting, Patrick. Don't say recruiting. You need to attract people. Okay. Anyway, it is recruiting. This is a membership organization, and I want to recruit as many people to my cause and your cause and Rotary's cause as I possibly can. And the way that I can do that is tell the stories and tell of those types of things. And I really love your insight when you're talking to people. You make them feel that way. And
Well, we also talk about, you hear people talk about the family of Rotary, right?
yeah,
And
yep.
for me, it is a real thing. And I love sharing this story because a past governor in my district, long, long time ago, shared this story about the family of Rotary. And she went to her club meeting one day and she was in the buffet line to get her lunch. And she was talking to the gentleman behind her, and she said, this was Betsy Demaray. She's passed away since then, but she said, Steve, how are you doing today? And he said, not so well. My wife passed away last night. And she said, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Your wife passed away last night. What are you doing at Rotary? He said, well, my two sons live out of town. They're on their way here, but I needed to be with family.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
And that's why he came to Rotary that day, because he needed to be with family.
How
And
awesome.
but
That's
and I think a
tremendous.
lot of
Yeah.
people can relate to that story because there is a lot to be said about the family of Rotary. Most of my closest friends today are all people that I met through Rotary, many of whom I may not have otherwise met if I hadn't gotten involved with Rotary.
That's
And
That's
Rotary's
amazing.
pretty
changed my
cool.
life. And, Todd, you mentioned about, the polio immunizations and projects that I've done. All of those activities have changed my life probably more than the beneficiaries of those programs right here.
Wow. That's that feeling.
Yep. 100%.
We harness that. We share that. You also
Hmm.
brought up expectations, making sure we meet their expectations and making it clear, I would think, the expectations that we have as a club or as
Yep.
that our expectations are might be also with that. But I love that. You mix all that with the feelings, you know, how many stories are out there like that too, that
So many.
where it made a huge difference. And no,
And we
that's
need to encourage, I say to people, every one of us has to share our stories because we will inspire somebody by sharing our experiences and our stories.
And those
Well,
kind of stories are better than the big check, Oh,
Yep.
here's a big check. That's maybe just a posting. But these in-depth ones about how because I interrupted you there, Patrick, but I know that the Rotary vision is together we see a world where people unite to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. And that's one of my favorite parts about it. It's just a change in myself.
Yep.
And if each of us is able to capitalize on that change ourselves, we're unstoppable.
Yep.
unstoppable. I mean, I listened to Chris. I'm glad you said that because this whole thing has been kind of leading up to this. We mentioned that you came out to the 5010 conference, and I was really lucky to be there. And I got a chance to listen to you speak, which is always an honor. I just love talking with you. And by the way, you're in my favorite picture that's ever been done. I took a selfie of us when we were in Massachusetts, and I was like, oh my God. It's like the perfect picture. But we're out there at 5010 and we listened to you speak, and it was inspiring. It was absolutely wonderful. But then you got back up on stage and you started talking about your friend and a recipient of this year, one of this year's Service Above Self Awards. And that you can tell you weren't presenting an award. It was more like a thank you to somebody who's demonstrated and shown that sort of thing. And it was really emotional. I was sitting maybe 10 feet from the stage, and
I'm getting
I got
emotional
emotional.
again.
Yeah, I mean, it was, those things, it's amazing though when you were sitting there, it was this um like I said, it wasn't a presentation of an award. It was a thank you to that person who, who inspired you and inspired other people. And after listening to you here, I now fully understand what you did there, and so I appreciate that because now I know, and I appreciate that a lot. That's really, really cool. So.
It was such an honor to have the chance to present that award in person to somebody who has been so selfless, doing so many things for her community, for Rotary, um, touched so many lives. It was pretty incredible.
That was a neat thing because my wife, did you read? I did a Facebook post a couple, maybe about a week ago about my wife. My wife is like my hero, and but she's a little introverted, which means I could go out and go do my Rotary stuff, and she's totally cool. Just let me know when you get back, kind of thing. But she went to the 5010's conference, and about 2 years ago when we were in Singapore, she said, I'm going, before we left, she had never been to an international convention. She said, I'm going to go this year. I was like, what? It's during school. She said, I'm going to take time off. I want to see you do the presentation. I was like, okay. Then I got nervous because I had never done it like that in front of her. So anyway, we go and I'm doing the flag ceremony with Stephanie Urchek, which was one of the biggest honors of my entire life. I didn't understand it until I got there, and I was the only person outside of her district that she had asked to do it with, and it was just highest honor. But with Rotary, you're going to reverse. I was like, what are we going to do? Are we doing like dance steps? They called it a rehearsal, and we're going to like, what are we doing? And we just had to go up the thing, stop, turn, face the audience, wait for 3 minutes, turn, go back down the thing, and that was it. So we had to rehearse that. And so my wife came with me, and there was Sylvia Whitlock. Now, since Houston, I've been telling her about Sylvia. And I was like, oh my God, meeting her.
Yep.
And so I say, come
Real,
on.
real quick for our listeners, Sylvia Whitlock
Oh, yeah.
was the first Rotary president of right when women came in, or first Rotarian. Tell
She
us.
was one of the first women to ever join Rotary. And at that time, women were not allowed. Rotary Club of Duarte, California.
Yep.
And at that time, women were not allowed. And when Rotary found out, when they inducted I think there were three women into this club, they sent in their names as their first initial and their last name instead of their female names. And when Rotary found out, they revoked the club's charter. And the Rotary Club of Duarte sued Rotary International, and it went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And the Rotary Club of Duarte won. Sylvia went on to become president of her club and a district governor. She's
Okay.
91 years old. Patrick and I got to see her speak, listen to her speak in Alaska 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Amazing,
Uh,
amazing woman. Anyway, so your wife got to meet Sylvia.
yeah. So I bring her up to, she's like,
Thank you,
no, I
Chris.
don't want to disturb her. I don't want to. I said, Angie, she's an educator. You have to meet her. So she went through being an introvert. She went through all the excuses. I brought her over there, introduced her to her, and then I got like shoved off to the side. I was like, I was gone.
You weren't
That's
a part
tough
of the
for me. I was
conversation
like,
anymore.
bye. And so they sat there for like 20 minutes and chatted. And then when we went up to 5010, I wanted to I asked Sylvia if I could get 5 minutes with her just to ask her a couple of questions. And so we could give it over to Todd and do the member cast. And then I thought about it and I said, Angie, I'd like for you to come up with the questions and I'd like for you to interview Sylvia. And normally I would have had something thrown at me, but Angie curled her hair, put on a dress, got the microphones. She didn't even show me the questions. She came up with the questions herself and sat down after that thing with Sylvia. And that to me, showing that change in my wife, even though she's a Rotarian, being able, you know what I mean, wanting to do that,
Very cool.
honoring that past and, you know, and trying to take those lessons into the future was something that, you know, I'll never forget. And I know that she uses those kind of stories about the people that she meets, speaking with the teachers that she speaks with, trying to get them into Rotary too. So
Love it.
personal stories.
Yep.
And we'll be featuring that interview or excerpts from it sometime in one of our future membercast
Wonderful.
videos here on Membership Unplugged. Chris, what's next for you? Now, as director, this is you're done this year as a director. Is that it?
Yeah, my 2-year term will be done June 30th.
2 years.
And, we have this big membership campaign going on, 1,250,000 members by 2030. And I want to continue to be a champion for that effort. I will be serving on the joint Rotary International Strategic Planning Committee starting
Wow.
July 1. So I'm really excited about that. And I
That's-
got to tell
like
you,
that.
I missed my Rotary Club because for the last 3 years, they haven't seen a lot of me. And I'm really excited about feeling re-engaged with my own Rotary Club here in Petoskey.
A family reunion at Petoskey, Michigan.
You betcha.
Rotary Club, founded in 1921. I looked up here.
Yep.
Over 100 years old.
Yes.
That's
Right.
tremendous. What a good testament for a good, strong club of good family.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Chris. Thanks again for joining us here on Membership Unplugged. Do you have any final thoughts for us before we wind her out?
I want to thank you guys and your team for everything that you're doing to help reinvigorate our clubs, give people that opportunity to enjoy the flexibility that we're offering with Rotary so that we can keep more people in this organization and continue to grow.
You've just been a really important person in my Rotary journey, and I wanted to thank you for all your service, what you've done for us.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thanks, Chris.
I'm excited. Thank you both. Great
I'm going
to
to
see
cue
you.
the music. You guys can both dance out if you want. All right, here we go.
All right.
I love it.
Hey, each week, check it out, Membership Unplugged. We drop a new episode every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time on our Facebook page, the North America Club Creation Team, or on our YouTube channel as well at Impact Studios. We will see you next week. Thanks again. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.